How do you have a good, productive conversation with someone who really doesn't believe what you believe about God, the Bible, truth, where we came from and where we're going? That's what we've been talking about in our last episode, and we're going to be talking about today. And that is how to engage people who may be skeptical, who may be agnostic, or who may even be a self-proclaimed atheist. How do we engage them in conversations that are not superficial, but actually would perhaps trigger some thought toward them about what is really real, what are we here for, and where are we going when we die? The important metaphysical questions that at some point all of us are going to have to wrestle with. So my name is Dan. I'm one of the teaching pastors at Life Fellowship in Cornelius, North Carolina, suburban Charlotte, and I'm joined today by our executive producer and the founder and president of the Equal Rights Institute, Josh Brahm. Josh, boy, that time went by on our last episode. There's so many things to talk about. As we ended last time, we were kind of talking about, how to lay the groundwork for a good conversation, how to ask good questions, and so forth. And also how to talk to people in a way that doesn't put them off. It doesn't build a wall where we thought we were building a bridge. Yeah. But when it comes right down to it, at some point, everybody's in my family, my neighbors and so forth. I do want to have a conversation about the gospel. Yeah. What would you say to someone who has said, well, how do I get there? How do I, without coming across like some, greasy-haired evangelist or, some argumentative, arrogant so-and-so, how do I get to the gospel?
Boy, that's a good question. And I don't know if I have the best answer for that, but I'll take my best stab at it. Is the way that I am naturally inclined is super towards common ground, trying to help people who are, let's say, outsiders, just to use the Colossians 4:5-6 term, conduct yourselves with wisdom toward outsiders, making the most of the opportunity. If we do that, I want to try to help them to see that I want to surprise them. I want to show that some of their assumptions about what Christians are, or what pro-lifers are, or what white men are, or whatever, is at least sometimes not true. It's true sometimes. There's reasons for the way that people think about Christians. But I want to show them that, but that's not all of us. That some of us might think one way or act one way, and some of us might really care about you. And so I want to try to start on common ground. I might try to start on common ground on something that they care a lot about. So I'm not on social media right now. I haven't been on social media for years just because it doesn't seem like a really great thing for people's mental health. But if I were on social media, then I would be watching for what does this person really care about? What are they talking a lot about? I would want to try to get in person with them. I would want to invite them to coffee, invite them to Starbucks or to get a bite or something. And I know Ben talked about this a lot too. This is something really helpful there. And I'd want to be talking to them and start by just finding as much common ground as you can, and learning about them, learning about their views, and hoping that as a lot of times when you do that, they will also ask you, well, what do you think? It is not... I have certainly been asked sometimes on college campuses after having a whole thing, a whole dialogue about abortion, and by that point they're still not they're not super off, but they're like, wow, this is been really good. It is natural for people to then be like, well, why do you believe the Bible? You seem smart, that kind of thing about this. But it's why do you believe this book that was written 2,000 years ago by old people who heard voices in their heads? That kind of that's basically the question. And I'm happy to try to give an answer for that, but I'm trying very hard. And I think probably the mistake that I probably make most often is waiting too long. But I'm trying very hard to not go into that too quickly. As one quick illustration of that, I had a very a close friend, still a friend, but a friend that I was really actively engaged with for a long time, named Deanna, and started debating about abortion. It became a 140 long email exchange that then became these really long, great Skype calls with an actual friend where we were doing both of those things, both friendship and debate about abortion. And her grandma died. And it was her first close family death after having become an atheist. And so it hit her hard. And so I knew I got a message from her that had happened, and I wanted to be able to grieve with her. And so I said it. So I basically headed to my podcast studio just because I knew that it can't be private, and set it up so we could. And on my way there, I had like a 20-minute drive. And on my way, I'm thinking about how am I going to do this? And of course, I felt the impulse that every Christian has, which was to Jesus juke this conversation. I was going to juke this thing into so like, let's talk about the hope that hopefully can be within you, like all of that stuff. And I decided not to do that. Thankfully, I think I just read an article like days before kind of about that. So like it's not even because of me, but I've been inspired recently. In that conversation, I found out at the end, she was waiting for me to do that.
Oh, wow.
She was waiting for me to try, this was a test. She
wanted you to live up to her expectations.
She wanted to see, am I going to do the obvious temptation? And when I didn't, then we were able to kind of get into that conversation a bit. Like it was helpful to her that she saw that I was just there to grieve with her. I was happy to just grieve with her all of that day. And if we can talk about the other stuff later, like we don't have to do all of that in one day. This is not our first conversation. It's not going to be our last conversation. Let's just grieve. And we had some good kind of common ground about how like, let's both kind of like, we kind of reaffirmed to each other that we both want to believe true things, not comfortable things. That was enough for that day. So, but I will say, absolutely, I believe that sometimes I probably am too non-confrontational and I probably wait too long, or I'm not as pushy as I could be. And people sometimes could take more pushiness. I'm overly concerned that if I'm just a little bit more pushy that I'm going to like drive them away. And some people are more patient than I give them credit for.
I think that's an important thing. Again, EQ is very important, I think, in being an effective witness. That you've got to be able to look and see, have I pushed too far? Are they open and willing to a deeper conversation? But if all we're thinking about is our delivery or winning or whatever it is that's motivating us, we're probably not thinking in that way. One of my frustrating things is, most guys, when they get together, one of the first 3 questions they ask is, what do you do for a living? And I've been a pastor for over 30 years, and I've been in ministry for over 40 years. One of the things that I find, and I think every pastor will agree with me, as soon as they know I'm a pastor, everything changes. Everything changes. And at the same time, at some point, they're either going to find out I'm a pastor, and I don't want it to be like they Google my name and it comes up with, and I was like, well, you didn't tell me,
I thought you were just an old white guy or a professor or whatever.
Boomer. So I again, using very carefully. Here's what I'd like to say to every church member that's listening to this. If you invite people to church before you invite them to your house, or before you invite them to coffee, or before you invite them to have dinner with you, shame on you.
Wow.
And I know that sounds really radical, but you stop and think, I mean, I'm as likely to go to a Muslim, what do they call it? House of worship.
Imam,
Imam's the pastor. What do they call it?
Come on. I know this.
We're not very good Muslims, are we? So you'll think of it and then interrupt me when you think of it.
Hang on.
But the fact that I can't even name it will tell you how likely I am to go there. It's not. The only time I could ever remember going to anything like that, I was going as a tourist.
Mosque. It's a mosque.
Please.
Of course.
Can you believe it? Everybody's in their car right now saying mosque, you idiot,
yelling
mosque.
At us.
It's like I yell at people on Jeopardy when they don't know the answer. But but I'm not likely to go to a mosque unless it's like got some cool art in it and I want to see it. And even then I'm going to be pretty uncomfortable. And yet we expect a guy who lives across the street who's never been to church to just want to hop in a car with us and go to this strange place where people say weird things and sing out loud and things like they've never experienced. So it's better to start off with dinner, is getting to know their name. What are your kids' names? Where do you go on vacation? Do you have pets? Those kind of things. And then at some point, they're going to be asking, hopefully, if they're decent at making friends, they're going to start asking you questions. And for you to just be very careful. Again, listening to the Holy Spirit and remembering, that you're about to enter into a very a conversation that is, if done correctly, is going to prick their hearts spiritually and invite Satan's attention as well, because he doesn't want him to hear the truth.
Right. I don't wear Christian T-shirts or pro-life T-shirts on a campus. I don't want it to be that obvious. And if I'm wearing that, also you look a little bit like a crusader anyway.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I'd rather just be kind of neutral and let them figure out. I'm not like other pro-lifers or other Christians anyway, or at least the ones in their minds. And so that's not even going to be a helpful bias for them. It's just here's me. Take me for who I am, and as we get into it, as they get to know me better, as they get closer, sort of into this concentric circles of friendship, then of course, I'm gonna talk to you about my church and stuff like that. But it's not going to be the opener. So I want to ask you though. Here's I agree with you, but here's the maybe the counter argument that I could imagine some church members making, or at least thinking in their heads. Wait a minute, don't we try to do particularly seeker-friendly services like Easter or the Christmas concert or things that are aren't we being told by our pastors on stage to invite our neighbors and friends to this, especially this time? Isn't that should they do that, or should they not be doing that until they've done the other things first?
Oh, you got me in a hot spot, because I was thinking about this week. So when we're recording this, we're about a month away from Easter. I'm already getting invitations from all the mega churches in town. Come worship with us at Easter. Come.
The postcards, you mean?
Oh yeah, in the mail. And even I've even seen some ads on Facebook and different places. And I have so many thoughts about this, but first of all, our church philosophy is not to be seeker driven at all. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little seeker sensitive, but the gathering of the body was people come to Christ when they see others worship and when they hear the truth preached. But Jesus sent the disciples, and the disciples sent each other out 2 by 2. They went out into the community. Yeah. Now, again, social structures have changed from where they were at that time. You don't just drop in on somebody's house. Yeah. When you knock on the door of my house, I assume one of 3 things. There's an emergency, there's a crisis, and I need to be made aware of it, or somebody's trying to sell me something, or you're a religious proselyte. You're either probably Mormon or Jehovah's Witness. Yeah. And if I answer the door at all, and I often don't, I already have my preconceived notions, at full tilt. Right. But if you invited me over to, have some dessert and a glass of sweet tea on your back porch, that changes everything. Yeah. It changes everything. And I like what you say. Don't be afraid to be honest about the Christian subculture. Yes. I used to sell shoes when I was in college, and the girl that sold shoes, or she was my manager, she every time she could, she made fun of Christians. Mm-hmm. She knew I was a Christian. She knew I was at a Christian college, but she would just do that to poke me just a little bit. And so she'd say, I saw this guy out on the street corner waving his Bible, and he was sweating, and he was in a suit. And I said, don't you she didn't know what to say. Yeah. And I said, who dresses like that? I one time saw a guy do that, and the sprinklers came on, and he didn't even get out of the sprinklers. He somehow thought he was more diligent because he stood in the sprinklers. What an idiot. Have you seen that too? And before lunch, she's like, well, yeah. And so we swapped ideas. And I said, it's kind of like Philadelphia fans. Everybody stereotypes Philadelphia fans, but I know some Philadelphia fans who don't throw snowballs at Santa Claus. And they don't do that. Mm-hmm. And, no matter who you are, you're going to find some jerks in the group. Yep. And twist that around. The interesting thing is she had a personal crisis in her life, and it was during the summer, and I was at home. She literally looked up the church that she knew I attended and went and talked to one of the pastors there. That's amazing. Yeah. So significant. Yeah. I mean, it was as likely for her to go to what at that time I was a Baptist church for help and a counsel as I would have been to go to the Oman and gone to a mosque and said, can you explain this to me? Yeah. And so those moments happen, but again, you got to build a bridge before you carry stuff across to the other side. Yes. And I think that's super important. I think it's especially important now. This is also this is a little bit of a tricky topic for me, because it's something I'm constantly thinking about, and also constantly unconvinced that I have figured out the right balance act to play here in my kind of role in the pro-life movement, which is kind of always been a little bit against the stream, and maybe hear some things that maybe we shouldn't do, and not everyone likes that. That's why I like you so much. I like people. I'm serious. That. I like people that do that. Not everyone does. No, they do not. And so, but I feel like
at least some of that. It's possible to do that too much. It's possible to make that like everything that you do and all of that. And it's an easy temptation to and all that. But I think it's at least important sometimes to point out like the worst elements that are happening among your tribe, and be against it.
Yeah. Say,
so
I see it too.
Yes.
Irritates me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they are seeing it all the time, and they're seeing it from probably, not Christian sources. They're probably hearing that, like, hey, basically all evangelicals think this way or whatever. And so if you don't, then you got to be the one to be like, it would make sense for you to assume that I think this way. I actually, I don't. And sometimes throwing a little bit of shade, a little bit of like, man, I hate it when people get, so Trumpy that they're like, constantly wearing a red hat and like buying the merch.
That's where I was
stuff
headed.
Like that.
Absolutely, that's where I was headed. Because if you've listened to this podcast at any time along, I'm not a MAGA Trump flag bearer.
Neither of us.
Yeah, neither one of us are. And please, for you folks listening to this, I appreciate the fact you do like him and you do wear his hats and flags or whatever. You don't need to send me material or whatever. After 12 years, I'm probably not going to change my mind on this. But let me give you some reason for that. I have had more gospel conversations built around the idea that I'm not like what they perceive to be the typical evangelical who is a red hat wearing, American flag waving. I love my country. Yeah. And I love politics. I'm a conservative, and I identify more with people on the right than they do on the left. At the same time, I am not comfortable with a lot of things that are part of the character of the party or the president at this time. Yeah. And again, please don't send me the argument, well, you got to vote for the lesser two. I've heard all those arguments, or whatever, but I'll tell you the good thing that happens. Sometimes people are angry at me for just simply breathing air because they assume as an evangelical, I am the opposite of them politically based around personalities. And I am probably the opposite of many of them politically, but it's not based on personalities, it's based on principle with me. And also if I think on principle, then I can see a lot of things with people who may be closer to me political that are just flat wrong. If I can detach myself from that and at least appear to be neutral, they'll listen to me. They'll engage with me. And I don't feel like I'm compromising one bit. If you ask me a question, we'll give you an honest answer. But the bottom line is, I'd rather have the opportunity to present somebody with the gospel than I would convincing them that my man is less evil than your man. Yeah. And so I just really think when you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and when you love people like you love yourself, some of that is often demonstrated by not saying what doesn't need to be said. Yeah. And it doesn't mean we have to confront over issues that won't matter in 50 years. We've got to be, wise serpents, harmless as doves when it comes, because in the end, I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican. I do care whether or not you know Jesus. Yeah.
And what you're describing it seems like if we would want people who are Democrats, if we would want Christian Democrats, or any Democrats that we know, to be able to look at what Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or anyone, Obama, whoever, if we would want them to be able to be like, okay, yeah, I voted for the guy, or the person or whoever, but like, I don't agree with this and this and this. There were people that were saying, yeah, I voted for Biden and I like certain things about him, but I'm pretty concerned about some of like the faculty stuff. Like I'm kind of like there were those people, and those people got taken more seriously sometimes than the people that were just like pretending like nothing was going on. Same thing goes for our site. Like it should be so easy for anyone who has voted for President Trump to be able to look up a list of things that he's done and find at least one thing that they disagree with. If you don't, then I'd be really concerned about you. Like that should always be the case, but especially in a case like this where some really big changes are being made and big kind of sweeping gestures that are kind of new and different, like we should be able to at least find some common ground. So then you can be like, okay, yes, maybe I voted for him because of X and Y, but I don't agree with A, B, and C. I don't agree with this and this. And like those things are going to be so important for you to be able to point out. So we want both sides to be able to do that. So we should be able to do that.
Absolutely. And I don't think that it's somehow biblical or wise for us to intertwine things with the gospel.
Yes.
I want to be known for my Christ likeness.
Yeah.
I don't want to be known for my politics.
Yeah.
I don't want to be known for anything more than I'd be known for Christ.
Yeah.
And by the way, I want to be known for Christ more than I want to be known as a pastor. I want to be the guy that when they find out I'm a Christian, and I don't think it should be a long time in a relationship with me, that they say, "Oh, of course, he acts like one. I should have seen that. I should have known that because he actually cares about me." Or he mowed my grass when I was out of town, or he did those things. And to have that, then that's a door through which I think we can conduct great conversations, share truths, debate topics. Because again, if they know you and they know your heart, it should be knowing Christ and knowing his heart. And then the conversations can follow from that.
By that point, you've built up rapport. You've built up, hopefully, I talk about, hopefully as you talk with someone, they will learn at least two things about you that make a powerful cord if you put them together, like a rope. It is one, that you're, thoughtful. I don't think you have to be really, really smart or anything like that. You don't have to know all the arguments or something like that, but thoughtful, open-minded, interested. And virtuous. This is much more important. They need to know, you're not pro-life because you hate women. You're not. You didn't vote for Trump because you wanted, I don't even know how to end that one without just losing people. So
as we kind of wrap this up, because we're, as always, running out of time without running out of topic. But the other thing we have to keep in mind is the work of the Holy Spirit. I use that Vance Havner quote, who used to be an old Southern Baptist evangelist, but he said, "Man must do what God has asked man to do, and then God will do what only God can do." God has asked us to live out the golden rule. God has asked us to live out the great commandment. God has asked us to live out the great commission. Those are things, and all of those things we're quite capable of doing, but we cannot change a heart. We cannot call someone to repentance. We cannot convince them that God is really real. That is a work of the Holy Spirit that happens through faith. And so I would just say, kind of as we're wrapping this up, we have to be patient and we have to be prayerful.
Yes.
And when we're prayerful, it makes us mindful.
Yes.
And so many of us walk out with our agenda superimposed. Oh, and if you have time, God, will you let me know what you want or what you're doing? Right. And he's almost like an afterthought.
Yeah.
And so to be mindful, to be Christ-like, to be virtuous, to be honest, to be transparent, to be generous. All of those things are what God can use to draw people toward truth. And we can be the agent of the Holy Spirit if we learn to handle that right.
Yeah. Our motto at ERI, and I think this fits really well with what you said, we say this all the time. We say every conversation is a series of difficult judgment calls amidst prayer without ceasing.
Oh, that's a great
Every conversation is a series of difficult judgment calls amidst prayer without ceasing. And I certainly don't make all the right judgment calls, but I'm also not running these conversations from the same script.
Right. Yep. And that takes wisdom.
Yeah.
And wisdom comes from God. Well, Josh, thanks so much for sharing your experiences and input in this. Again, I've watched you do this in person. I've read your material, and I've watched you on your podcast or on your videos and so forth at the EqualRightsInstitute.com, right?
That's us.
EqualRightsInstitute.com. And thanks as always for joining us at Life Talks. We appreciate your input. We appreciate your endorsement. So if you'd share our link to somebody, we'd appreciate that. Leave us a review. Tell others to listen to us. I'd certainly appreciate it. And until next time, thanks for joining us here at Life Talks.